Alright, what you see here is a NuTone hug to ceiling fan. It's a hugger fan that NuTone sold from the mid to late 80s up until like the late 90s as far as I'm concerned. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, I got this for free off of Facebook Marketplace with Nathan. And it's in pretty good shape. By the looks of it was installed somewhat near a kitchen because there's some spots in there that was a little bit tricky to clean off. So I'm guessing it was pretty close to a kitchen. Like maybe like in the living room and the kitchen was kind of close by. So kind of the same case of like my living room and such. But yeah, it's in pretty good shape. This was replaced by a Hunter Minimus ceiling fan. As that's the box that came with this. Fan worked fine. They just wanted to have something that was a little bit more modern looking and such, which I totally understand, especially since they were doing renovations and everything. But yeah, it's definitely a fan I've been wanting to get for a while now. I've always liked these fans, especially since I remember seeing these at a place nearby me as a kid. It's still there to this day. Probably the space is empty now. No, I'm pretty sure I saw them last time I drove by and such, but yeah, I was at that sports place and like the town gift shop, like for like the sports teams, like the high school and such. But there was two of them in the front. One of them had a bent blade, the other one didn't, and then there was another one in the back, a back room of some sort. Yeah, I always saw them as a kid. But yeah, this one, the blade arms are a little bit, I want to say they're droopy, but I noticed a lot of them, they tend to have the blades hanging down a tiny bit like this. So it looks more like that's the design versus the blades drooping down from not being used much. Though it could be the latter as well. But yeah. It's basically a generic hugger fan from NuTone back in the day. But the vents on this I've always liked a lot. It definitely gives me an 80s feeling out of it, even though this one's from the 90s. They had several versions of these. The 80s version with the skinnier switch housing, and then this version with the more chunkier switch housing, which I prefer the look of, in all honesty. Plus, it goes a bit faster from what I've seen. I've heard that I know that these ones with the skinnier switch housings, from what I've heard, they tend to go a bit slower. Well, not from what I've heard, from what I've seen in videos and such. Same thing with like the NuTone decorators. But yeah, there's quite a few of these in the area and such. The video that really got me into these is Cole Somako's video of his from many years ago, better known on YouTube as Vintage Fans and More. And ever since I saw that one, it was like one of the first, I think it might have been like one of the first few ceiling fan videos I ever saw on YouTube as a kid. Or like a kid going into like my teenage years, like 11 to 12 years old and such. I don't know, it just reminded me of a lot of fans I saw as a kid and such. But it definitely reminds me of like a lot of those exhaust fans of some sort, like from the 80s, just the vents on it and such, or exhaust lights for a bathroom. But yeah, it's definitely a fan I'm very happy to have. I do want to find one in the polished brass configuration with the 5 blades and such, in this size as well. Either in the 4 or 5 blade. I'd like to find both, but the white's definitely the most common finish for these. I know they made them in brown in the 42-inch size. I'm not sure if that's the case with the 52-inch size, but it's possible. But yeah. Now it does use real wood, but maybe the same quality as Hunter's wood blades from the 90s, or the more standard models and such. It's not MDF, but I know I think it was like later on they used kind of close to MDF type blades, or maybe not, but like it wasn't. This is definitely a bit higher quality than the blades on my 42-inch model. That's in polished brass. Yeah, it's a nice fan. I really do like these a lot. I know a lot of people have said that they saw these in schools and such as a kid. It's definitely stuff I can see like in a school or like a daycare or like a vacation home. Many places I can see these in. pull chain's original to the fan, which was nice and such. Yeah, I was actually surprised that the metal parts on this is definitely more solid than the other one I have. It's definitely a bit more, it's not as cheap. We made it to the 42-inch one that I got. That's from the late 90s. This one I'm not sure how old it is, but it's probably from the early 90s. Just my guess. But yeah, let me go ahead and start off on the low speed. One of the blade arms is well, the blade arms are definitely a bit out of clock. Nothing severe. Low speed on it is a little bit faster than I thought it would be, honestly. But I mean, I know it's like an early, I don't know, like I've noticed, like I know that NuTone enjoys mid to late 80s. More so in the late 80s, they started to shift production like overseas. So like little by little, they kind of went downhill in quality. Still made good fans, but it was like over time they started to slowly decrease the quality until like the late 90s going into the early 2000s. Now NuTone is still in business today, since they don't really focus on ceiling fans anymore like they used to. Mostly they focus on like exhaust fans for like kitchens or bathrooms and such. I'm not sure what was the last year they sold ceiling fans. I know I see some hugger fans from them, like the contemporary ones on eBay here and there. But I know it has some modernish looking ceiling fans in like the 2000s era or like the early 2010s. I'm not sure when they officially stopped selling them, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint. But yeah, I'm not sure where these were really sold as back in the day, because by the time I was born, they were kind of like being discontinued somewhat. I mean, I know NuTone was a brand that was sold in showrooms, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were sold in like Ace Hardwares or something like that, or other hardware stores back in the day. Especially the more generic models like this one. Alright, let me go ahead and move it up to medium. But yeah, like in terms of hugger fans, for a lot of collectors, these and low profiles are like the two most, I want to say sought after huggers from the 90s. I guess it's like the most commonly seen fan from the 90s for collectors that are childhood fans. Like a lot of people either saw like a lot of these or the low profiles. It's just something I've noticed, like when it comes to like more like showroom brand type stuff, or just a bunch of generic huggers. And but like in terms of like huggers from the 90s, these seem to be like the two most sought after within the fan community, I've noticed. And like the SMC huggers and such that they've made. It's humming a little bit on a medium speed. it uses the 4 hex locks to like mount the motor to the mounting bracket, which is my preferred way to mounting hugger fans. Not or the Hunter's method with the low profiles, but sometimes they can still hum depending on how tight you have them. I notice if you have them a bit more a little bit looser, they don't hum as much. So they might be just a little bit too tight. But it's just for testing purposes as well, so I'm not really concerned or anything. Alright, let me go ahead and move it up to high speed. Here it is on high. Another fan that NuTone sold in the 90s I've been wanting to find is the NuTone Nuvo, I think it was called. And sold a version very similar, like a knockoff model of it. It's humming a bit more than it was before I tested it on video. Like it still hums, but it's not making like that buzzy-ish sound with the metal and all that. If I probably loosen those like 4 bolts that are holding the motor to it, it'd probably hum less. But it's just for testing, so I'm not really concerned about it. But it is moving a pretty good amount of air. I've heard some people say that they're not the best fans. I mean, they're definitely not, because especially since they're hugger fans. Usually huggers don't move a lot of air. But it's definitely one of the better hugger fans out there. I don't know if I'd say it's about the same air movement as the low profile. And I've tested quite a bit of those to really get a read on them. It's definitely a fan I think would look really nice if a schoolhouse light, forearm light kit, or even a spotlight. Those are like the 3 light kits I'd probably put on this. I'd say it's about spinner mode. Hunter, almost about that. It's a little bit weaker than that, but it's definitely pushing a very good breeze underneath it, especially for a hugger. Let me go ahead and shut it off. You spin down and now show it in reverse. Yeah, it's definitely not a bad air mover, honestly. So that's my first spinner motor NuTone fan I've tested down here. Now, I was thinking about trying to bend the blade arms a little bit better, but it's just, since these seem to be like a specific shape, I didn't want to break one and didn't try to find a replacement. Cause I remember when Cole got replacement blade arms for his, he had to like drill holes to get them to fit the blades. They definitely do look like they're like specifically fitted for the NuTone blades, not just any generic blade arm, which is the case with the 42-inch one that I got. Plus, it's not like it's wobbling or anything, so I really am not concerned about it. And we can kind of tell that there are a few of them that are like out of clock a little bit. There is one blade that has a little bit of scuff on it, so it might be that when it was taken down, somebody accidentally stepped on a blade or something, causing it to get a little bit bent. Just my guess, I'm not 100% sure, but happens every now and then. Alright, it's going to complete stop. You're not to show it on reverse. There's been a few of these in polished brass that have showed up on Marketplace every now and then and such. It's just sometimes they're asking either too much or they sell right away. Not that I wouldn't mind paying a decent amount, but since they're not extremely hard fans to find, I'd rather wait until I find one that's either closer and not too expensive. Especially if I can use like for example, like if I found one for $40, I'd probably pass on it. Especially because if I can use that $40 to find another fan that's not as common, and find something better for that price. That's more worth it and such. At the same time, everybody can pay whatever they want for a fan. For me, I usually try to not spend too much on ones that are common and such. Yeah, it does a good job on reverse as well. So, yeah, and that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more videos to come.